Welcome back to the Overheard Podcast, recorded live in Banff. My name is Dan Ruedl. You'll notice a little bit of a different setup. Matty Rage is not here. Unfortunately, he had to skedaddle for today due to prior commitments. So we're here, myself and a very, very special guest. We have Lydia Bradey joining us today. Thank you so much for joining us, Lydia. How's the day so far?
Kia ora. Thank you very much.
What does that mean, Kiara?
Kia ora is a greeting in Māori.
Very nice, very nice. If it's your first time joining us, please don't forget to give us a little like and subscribe. We find about 70% of our guests tune in and don't subscribe, so would help us tremendously to smash that little like if you're out there listening. Today's guest is a true legend of mountaineering, a woman whose name is etched into the highest peaks on Earth. Lydia Bradey lives by the shore of Hawaii near Wanaka, New Zealand, where she shares life with her partner, fellow climber Dean Staples, and their cat, Koshka. But her real home has always been in the mountains. In 1988, Lydia became the first woman in the world to climb Mount Everest without supplemental oxygen.
That's
Congratulations.
true. Thank you.
And to this day, she remains the only New Zealander to have ever done so. She stood on the summit of Everest 6 times, completed 10 ascents over 8,000 meters, and has taken part in more than 35 expeditions over 6,000 meters across the globe. Before Everest, Lydia spent time in the early 80s cutting her teeth on the granite walls of Yosemite Valley, making 7 first female ascents on big walls that took days to climb, all before most people knew her name. As an IFMGA International Mountain Guide, Lydia has led and guided expeditions from Nepal to Antarctica, from the volcanoes of Chile to the high peaks of Pakistan and Kyrgyzstan. She's the only woman in the world to have guided Everest more than twice. In fact, she's done it 5 times and continues to push the boundaries in some of the world's most extreme environments. Beyond the summits, Lydia is also a registered physiotherapist, professional speaker, and a passionate advocate for resilience, mindset, and finding personal meaning in challenge. In 2020, she was appointed an officer of the New Zealand Order of Merit for her extraordinary contributions to mountaineering. Lydia's story also takes the stage in Joanna Croston's new book, Mountaineering Women, Climbing Through History, a beautiful and important collection that shines light on 20 pioneering women whose names and achievements often went untold. In the book, Lydia's voice stands out not only for what she accomplished, but for the honesty in which she reflects on it, reminding us that women's stories in the mountains aren't always shouted from the summit, but spoken in a quiet strength that carries it just as far. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
We actually ran into each other by chance last night.
Sitting next to each other in the movies.
Absolutely. Kind of a moment that I couldn't let go. I was like, this happened by chance. Well, maybe not by chance in the end. I knew we kind of had to sit and chat, you know?
Yeah. It was a privilege. Thank you for inviting me. May I just do one little correction which has been outdated, and that's I haven't corrected it on
yes, please.
My bio, and that is, there's this wonderful woman, Carla, who has been guiding on Everest, and she was one of the guides for Jim Morrison's just recent descent, you know, when he skied the north side on Everest, that will be made a film later. So she was one of the guides who summited and fixed ropes and made that trip happen, and she's guided Everest now, I don't know how many times, and climbed Everest without oxygen.
Amazing.
And she is a really beautiful person, and, you know, the next generation coming through, she's fantastic. So I just have to give a shout out to her.
How does that make you feel to have someone surpass your exploits or come close to them even?
Oh, well, that's how it should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is how it should be, yeah. You know, and then she will also then mentor the next generation through, yeah.
For sure. What was your relationship like with the outdoors growing up in New Zealand? Obviously, one of the wilder, unkept places in the world. Were you always drawn to adventure, or were the mountains something you kind of drifted into later in life?
So it's a really good question, because most of my friends come from families where they started skiing when they were young and had lots of adventures. And I started in relatively, or a not very well-off family. So there was just my mother and I shared a bedroom with her until I was like 9 or 11, something like that. And so, you know, we didn't have a lot of money. In fact, we didn't have a car until I was about 10.
Wild.
Yeah, so so that inhibited that early step into the mountains. And I was also not very good at sport. Like I was super bad at sports. And so I always struggle with an imposter syndrome, actually. So then when I was 14 and the school holidays, my mother sent me on a mountain craft course, which was run by the New Zealand Department of Education. And it was like a camp where, say, 20 young people could get together. They were 14 and 15 and do mountain things or adventure things, like super mellow adventure things.
Like hiking or
and
kayaking,
sleeping,
yeah.
It's like hiking in like an abseil or a rappel, and, and swimming in an alpine tarn with snow around the edges.
Cool.
Just really cool things. And I thought it was this sort of hiking, but we call it tramping in New Zealand, off trail, was pretty tough. And I thought, well, maybe it's not for me. But then when I went home, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And I thought about the amazing experience of sharing these adventures in the mountains with these people I didn't know to begin with. And then I had to go back. So as a 14-year-old, I started hiking but serious hiking with clubs. And then 15, I started meeting climbers. And 16, mentors started taking me into the mountains properly, into pointier mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so on. And the rest is history.
Wild. Is there a point where you kind of knew that you wanted to make your life climbing? Like you do have, a job outside of the climbing world and all that stuff, but when did you know that was going to be your focus?
When I was at school, I was moderately academic and I did all right. I liked learning and I was interested in everything. I don't like following rules too much. I didn't. I'm really good now, I think. Anyhow, so I knew I was going to go to university at some part of my life, but I didn't know what to do. Did I want to try to do fine arts? I'd have to work pretty hard to do fine arts, but it would interest me. Excuse me. Or would I want to do science, or would I want to do, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And at that point, I'd never done biology because we studied birds when I was like 10 and I found it really boring and I didn't do it after that, which was like a dumb move, okay? Yeah. A dumb move because it's a really interesting subject. Anyway, so what to do, and I'm in the second to last year. But if you've got good enough marks, you can make it the last year for your school, and that you can go to university. We have a year 12 and a year 13. And I was like, every day, what shall I do? What shall I do? I didn't want to go to university and fail or pull out. I just needed to do something with my life. And then I was walking along one day, and it's like this hand comes out of the sky, and it taps me on the shoulder, and it says, hey. And I was like, well, in my head.
Yeah.
This is. And you should just go climbing. And it wasn't like, oh, yeah, just travel around the world and do some climbing. It's like, go climbing.
Yeah.
And I went, that is such a good idea. Because I'd started climbing already and I'd already done some good ascents while I was at high school. And so I went climbing.
It seems to be a common theme, not only in the talk that you had with Joe, but with a lot of people that we've talked to throughout this festival and in adventure sports and mountaineering, is being told no or being told that you can't do it and going and doing it anyways.
Yeah.
It's a super common thread.
That's interesting. I wonder, everybody who does that has to be curious. Mm-hmm. And so maybe they're fortunate enough to grow up with either an innate level of engagement, or they've been encouraged to be engaged with things and curious with things. So, many times I've ended up, in a relationship with a guy and he'll go, what's all this why all the time?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I was brought up to ask why. I was brought up to be curious.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes if the wall is there, you're always going to go, well, if there's a wall, there must be something on the other side. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a wall, would there?
Absolutely.
If you want to make people go to the other side, put a wall.
True. It's like rules are meant to be broken.
Yeah.
Same type of concept, right?
Yeah. I mean, rules, rules are really important.
True. With anarchy comes
chaos.
zero structure, but
yeah.
I think to a certain extent, we'll say. Can you tell us a little bit about your time in the early 80s? And what did that chapter teach you into your further life in climbing?
Oh, nice. In the early 80s, so I went overseas and went climbing. Excuse me. And I went to Alaska because everybody I knew who was into mountaineering in New Zealand went to South America, so I had to go somewhere different.
Of course.
And I got fully spanked on Denali. I guess you know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
And hang on, what did we say? Oh, the early years.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so the other thing is, in the early 80s, there wasn't sport climbing.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't very sporty, as I've explained. I wasn't gymnastic and I wasn't coordinated, but I could put one foot in front of the other and I could be motivated.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I could be funny, so people quite liked it because I was motivated. I could put a foot in front of each other, and it was quite good fun to be with.
Yeah, always a good time.
And you've got to do your work. If you go away, sometimes I say this to people beginning, whether they're young or old, if you go away with people who are more experienced than you, what you do is you do the chores.
Mm-hmm.
And they can do the hard stuff because they've got experience, and you do the chores. You get the snow to melt. You do that last minute shopping, which I really don't like. You do the chore, and then you're good company to be with. Well, that's easy. They'll be happy to have you along.
They might even ask you to come around again.
That was kind of the theme of the 80s. I did the chores.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I wanted to be places. So there was no sport climbing. I was not very brave. And so I started rock climbing, and I really agonized over it for about 7 years. Oh my God, I'm a mountaineer. I have to go rock climbing. Mountaineers if they want to get better, they need to rock climb because you need to rock climb. And I'm scared of rock climbing, and I cry and all that kind of stuff. We all cry. So then I discovered aid climbing I flew to Alaska, climbed in Alaska, got spanked, ended up in Canada, went to Squamish, discovered aid climbing, did an A1 big wall on the Chief, and then, I can be up here. Mm-hmm. But I can just have to do it on aid climbing. And fortunately, aid climbing was super big in the valley, and went to the valley and then spent 3 seasons in the valley, and aid climbed 10 big walls. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, 7 first females, yeah.
Who did you look up to being such a pioneer in the climbing world? Was there anyone kind of...
Oh, lots of different people.
Yeah.
I've always looked up to people who are good storytellers.
Mm.
And I think people tell stories in different ways, don't they? They tell stories like I do, really quickly, waving their arms around, and sometimes they tell stories by just going, yeah, and then we had to spend the night without a sleeping bag. And that's the story, but it's actually really funny. Mm-hmm. And so people tell stories in different ways because they are different people, but the stories come from experiences that they have had and what they've taken out of it. And they may be funny, or they may be really goddamn serious, or they may be super sad, or they may be just jaw-dropping, or whatever. This indicates what they've taken out of the world that they've been in. And that is the sort of thing that drew me. That is why I wanted to be up on the valley, up on the walls in Yosemite, is because you would come down and you'd be in my campsite, and Dan would go, oh my God, we just had this amazing experience up there, and then this bird flew really close to us, and then we ran out of water, and then my friend dropped all the cams, and so on.
Yeah.
And they had such a good time because it was really epic, and that's all I wanted to do, is go and have that.
That's a very cool perspective. I think that's the first time I've ever heard that angle before. It's very interesting.
Well, that's the angle of someone who wasn't that confident about their sporting ability.
Yeah.
So I had to choose another way to motivate myself to get there, mm-hmm. and I had to choose another route, which was my path.
Pretty strong metaphor when we're talking about climbing and mountaineering. We unpacked a little bit earlier, and again, with the discussion you were a part of earlier this week, is the whole concept of imposter syndrome. The opposite of that, was there a moment that you thought, I belong in this world?
Oh, I think you could do both.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why people are so often seemingly drawn and pushed and pulled. And we've seen quite a few films, like I saw the Benjamin Van Dreen movie last night on K2, and he's driven and then he's pulls back, but at the same time there's the lure of the mountains that's beyond his inner self angst, blah blah. And well, not he wasn't blah blah. And so yes, there was a moment when I knew, then I had an epiphany. And I was quite young, I was probably 15, and I was on a tramping trip. I know it's such a fuddy-duddy word, isn't it? But I can tell you what, trampers...
I like it.
Trampers are pretty hardcore.
It reminds me of the movie Into the Wild, where he calls himself Supertramp, whatever, right? Like
Supertramp.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that, Supertramp. They were a good band. Long time, though. So I was 15, and we were on the weekend was a long weekend, so it was 3 days, so we could get deeper into the mountains. Mm-hmm. And these are smaller mountains, but they're covered in snow in winter.
Yeah.
And they're in New Zealand, in the South Island, in the area called the Lewis Pass. And so there were two tramping clubs, and one was the powerful, strong tramping club, and one was the itty bitty, hick tramping club.
Okay.
Kind of. And we were camping in the same valley, and the snow fell. And we don't get a lot of snow falling in our valleys in New Zealand. So it was really thick snow. And then it cleared up. And the old guy, who was only probably about 45, the old guy who was looking after me said, tomorrow we've got to walk out. We can walk out down the valley, over the pass, and down the next valley, or we can join the Christchurch Tramping Club, the hardcore tramping club. We can go up to the top of the mountains and walk all the way along the ridge, all the way, and then just drop straight down to our cars. And we'll crampons and ice axe, we've got them. And I just was like, can we? Absolutely. So we went, and I was really scared. Oh, well, can I do it? And it'll be so hard, and I'll be so tired, la-di-da, all that kind of stuff. And then I get there, and as soon as I got onto the tops, so we call this a tops trip, TOPS, yeah, a tops trip. As soon as I got onto the tops, we're not in that crummy, dark, spooky valley, was darkness, and every time we came over a rise, there was a new view, and we only had one big up, and then the rest were little ups and downs all the time. Man, I just knew, this is it. This is a tops trip.
A solidifying moment in your life.
That's a great expression. Yeah. And in fact, then it expanded into transalpine trips, so where your tops are quite challenging. You go from ridge to ridge. So transalpine involve a lot of tops trips, if you like. And the ultimate transalpine trip that I would have liked to have done, which I thought about the second time I went up Mount Everest, not the first, because I was on the edge on the first, was to traverse Mount Everest.
Wow.
And that would have been because I had the skills.
Yeah.
And there would have been some ropes there because I was guiding it, and they were guiding it from both sides. And it would have been really good to say, okay, I've got you to the top now. Have a great day, and then just go. And then it would have the ropes would have been there, so it would have been unfolding itself, and you would have been on your own or with someone, whatever, and you would have been going down, and going down is remarkably more easy at altitude than going up. It's closer in difficulty at low altitude and further in difficulty away.
And why is that?
Well,
just the way the mountains are formed.
Hard going up. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about when you went up Everest for the first time, you summited without oxygen?
I did.
Correct. What do you remember most vividly about that first time up?
I remember the summit day was very formative. The summit day, I was on my own. There were people on the mountain. All the way to the south summit, which is 100 vert from the main summit, was relatively firm, hard snow, hard cramponing. Then it was a little bit firm all the way up. And then probably just around the south summit and to the main summit was deep snow, and that had people's tracks in it.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have summited if those post holes weren't there.
Fair.
Yeah, there's no rope.
Well, of course. I mean, this is a drastically different time, which lead me into my next question.
Yeah. Well, wait.
Yeah,
And then,
please.
Wait. We're really enthusiastic. That's why we chatted so much in the movie. We probably got jaffers things thrown at us or something.
Sorry, guys.
So the key thing about not having rope is, of course, it's easier to get over the technical sections, and it's much, much safer coming down because you don't have to climb down. You can arm ramp rappel. Rappel if it's steep, but arm ramp otherwise. But the other thing that we don't think about very much is, mountains like Everest, when you get into them, when you get on them, they're big and they're kind of blobby.
What do you mean by blobby?
Well, there's a big blob of snow with some blobs of rock sticking out of it.
Yeah, okay, fair.
Okay, so as opposed to, a knife edge arête that saws all its way up.
Mm-hmm.
So on K2, for example, the ridges, say on the Abruzzi, the ridge is relatively defined on the way up to, say, Camp 3 area, so just 7,100, 200, or 7.3. And then after that, you've got this big apron. And then when you're coming down, you can't see which edge is, where the edge is. Mm-hmm. So that's your challenging thing because they don't fix all that necessarily. Yeah. Well, they might do now, but they didn't used to. So and in the afternoon, you always get afternoon cloud. Mm. So I get up halfway, I get up to the balcony, for example, and I didn't know it was called the balcony because I never did any reading about mountains because I read novels. No, I did do lots of reading about mountains, but when I was really beginning, and not about Everest. And so I looked around for really strong indicators. Look, there's the Big Banff sign. I know I need to go to the left of the Big Banff sign and straight down. If I go to the right of the Banff sign, then I'm going to be in the wrong place and I'm going to end up dying.
Yeah.
Okay, it's kind of critical.
Of course.
Yeah, so no rope. And then I get up to the balcony, I go, okay, let's have a look. Well, before that and onto the balcony, let's have a look for the definitive features. And there wasn't anything. But, there's a patch of snow, big rock. Oh, I'll go to the big rock. Oh, look, there's a big rock over there. Oh, look, towards the Kanchong face. There's a big rock over there.
Yeah.
So in a wide out, easy to lose way. So this is always in the back of your mind. Mm-hmm. And I just had to commit. So that was my first big commitment on the mountain, really.
That's insane. Wild. Let's go fast forward a bit to the moment. Well, actually, let's go back to what I was going to ask you, and or just to kind of make this point to the viewership that, especially in the years past, we've seen that infamous photo of hundreds and hundreds of climbers waiting to summit. And I just want to paint the picture that it was drastically different for yourself when you did it the first time. Now you go to base camp, it's a little town, right? You have most of many of these that you'll find in Banff or in a major city. How was that different for you back then? Like, take us through what it would maybe look like in the 80s.
In the late 80s, actually. So on the mountain, so my 7th Himalayan expedition, and it was the very first expedition we had any help. Mm-hmm. So there were 9 climbers, 2 different routes. So 50% of the expedition was Slovak, and they were climbing the southwest face of Everest alpine style without oxygen. And then the other 50% were Kiwis, New Zealanders, and we were bumbling our way up the mountain, without oxygen, normal route. But we all carried loads. Mm-hmm. We carried loads to Camp 1 and Camp 2 and Camp 3, and we fixed rope on the Lhotse face. So we were the rope fixers. So, say, other expeditions, there was an arrangement, they did the Icefall, a couple of expeditions, and we gave them ladders and things too. You had to contribute.
For sure.
And then, and we fixed one section maybe to the yellow band or something like that on Lhotse face, and then somebody else to from yellow band up. So there were fixed ropes to the South Col. So things are really different. So that's the first thing, is that you're carrying loads on K2 just before, 3 days off in Kathmandu between K2 and Everest. Mm. And I was young, so I partied quite hard.
No way.
So, just let me trek to Everest and recover. Yeah. And, so I was acclimatized because I've been carrying loads. And then, of course, you don't have as many people. And then, of course, you don't have anyone climbing with you, holding your hand, carrying your spare oxygen bottle just in case you needed oxygen, which would be a good idea, and I'd do it if I was doing it again like that.
Yeah.
Don't knock it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Just a bit more, like, I just wanted to ask you that specifically because the experience of doing it in the late 80s to doing it today is vastly different, right?
I guess a lot of you in the audience will know that Dan and I are talking about the crowded summit days.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple of things, is that the summit days on Everest, on 2 routes on Everest, just 2 routes, there's like 20 routes, but just 2 of the routes are crowded if the weather windows are really limited.
Fair.
And they are not too crowded when there's lots of weather windows. So there's your first thing.
So maybe a little misrepresented in the media.
No, yeah, of course. But media, that's what media does.
Of course.
Oh, you're the media. You should know that.
Well, we try to represent things a little differently.
No, I know. This is a really awesome podcast, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm really enjoying myself, and you're asking really good questions, so I really thank you very much. Where am I?
We're talking about...
Oh, the crowds.
Yeah.
So I've climbed it 6 times. Obviously, one time was a long time ago, 1988. Then 2008 till 2019, almost all on the south side, one lot on the north. And in those times, the last 2 summit days that I had, 18 and 19, were one of the very day that photo was taken, I climbed it from the north side. And my last 2 summit days I've been on the summit on my own.
Amazing.
With my client or clients and with my Sherpa posse. So like 4 of us, 5 of us, maybe 6 of us max, and on our own. And the first time was because we cranked our oxygen up because we had enough oxygen, and then we passed 74 people, and that's a lot of work. You have to be really fit.
For sure.
You have to be really precise so that you don't fall.
Yeah.
Because it's actually, Everest is really steep. And so don't knock it. People say, oh, people are just dragged up. It's steep. It's really steep. The summit day is really steep. And I've seen things fall down the Lhotse face as well. Once you start falling, you're not going to stop. So it's a steep mountain. And so we passed all these people and we got to the summit. In fact, we were on the south summit, and I realised that if we didn't slow down, we were going to be summiting in the dark, and we didn't come there to summit in the dark. We came there for the view. So there's been this kind of, it's really funny because there's been this kind of track. I've got a photo, I'll send it to you later. There's this track that's been made in the snow by people because, had a lot of people the day before.
Yeah.
And it's between the south summit and the Hillary Step. And I'm going, there's one client up there, and then there's one client here. And then I've got also the Sherps leading, and the Sherps are so psyched that since the balcony, since we knew that we were going to be ahead, they've just been going like, they've got really heavy packs, and they've just been going like this. They're so psyched. Because they're climbers.
Yeah.
And it's really funny. And I'm going, what am I going to do? I've got to run. I've got to run in the dark. Well, you're clipped in. Not really running, but kind of running in the dark. Along to get to my people, and everyone's down, and it's in the dark, and the wind's going, and you've got goggles, I haven't got goggles, you've got a mask, and it's like, ooh, like this, and you've got to go, stop, slow down, or you'll regret it for the rest of your life. That's kind of meaningful, and their eyes go like this.
100%.
And I had to go, and then the Sherps look around, like going, slow down. And everyone just slowed down, and we just totally had 25 minutes on our own on the summit.
Amazing.
Watched the dawn come up. That's so good. And then the second descent was the same time, the same day.
Amazing.
That photo was taken on the north side. We knew because of the weather, it was going to be 120 people on the north side the next on whatever day after the NIMS day, photo day. And in order to avoid that, I was guiding a woman called Roxanne Vogel who did a Everest Summit USA record of 14 days. She was the real deal, and very cute and lovely person as well. And so we went from Camp 2. So we totally missed Camp 3. And by doing that, all the people were here at Camp 2 and they were all going to move up to Camp 3.
Yeah.
But we went all the way to the summit and back to Camp 2, and the only people on the mountain were 5 Tibetan rope fixers who finished the rope fixing for the last 200 vert. And they were so psyched to be on the mountain on their own. They gave us big hugs on the way down, and we were just 4 people. And we saw the last of that mega crowd on the south side just disappearing over the horizon when we got to the summit.
Amazing.
And then we had it to ourselves.
Wow.
The whole mountain.
Let me pick your brain on that moment when you're standing on the highest mountain in the world. What's going through your mind? Are you feeling triumph, peace, smallness, or something else totally?
No, all of those maybe. Yeah. You know, you're so high that you don't have your size and shape in proportion to anything around you, all right? By the time you've got to, say, 7,500, depending on which side you're on because of your view, then all the peaks below you kind of going up and down like that, you know. There. And the experience, say from 8,500 on, the experience is really of being on the mountain and when you get to the summit ridge from the south side, from the Nepal side, and when you're on the big summit ridge on the north side, you are on this mountain, and do you know you're the highest person in the world? And that's not like I'm the highest person in the world, but oh my goodness, I'm the highest person in the world. That kind of awe. Yeah. And then you're walking along Mount Everest, and no matter how many times you do it, it's just amazing experience. It's
fantastic.
Amazing. Yeah.
What would be your advice to someone who has zero mountaineering experience but is, say, inspired by this conversation and wants to climb Mount Everest?
I'd say I would not knock it. I would say good, and you will enjoy yourself, and you'll have much greater chance of success, like much, much greater. And you'll expand your whole world if you do a whole lot of mountaineering before.
For sure.
You don't have to take forever to do a whole lot of mountaineering. But it's not necessarily steep and hard and technical. It's just time on your crampons.
Yeah.
And time in big nature. Big nature. Consequential terrain. Whether it's, whatever. Consequential terrain.
Do you ever feel a sense of comfort in consequential terrain the more time you spend in it?
Yeah, it's kind of the other use of the word for acclimatizing, isn't it? You know, you haven't been on the rock for ages. You've got to, some of us have to start off really lowly. Exposure, you have to get really used to exposure again. And exposure on the mountains is the same thing. So a year ago, I had a knee replacement, a total knee replacement. Of course, before that, it was getting sorer and sorer and sorer. And so for about 18 months, I haven't now been in really steep, exposed terrain on my crampons. And I know I'll have to work it. Yeah.
So almost just like any other sport where you're working out in the gym to that sense of, you have to work it in a sense. It's not just something that's innate. And if you don't have that fear.
But I think, imagine somebody who is a really good surfer or a really good skier, the centre ski.
Yeah.
So they haven't skied for a long time, but they can get on their ski and they can be centre ski or centre board, which and then I'm probably centre crampon.
It's a good way to put it, for sure. Let's touch a little bit on your contribution to Joanna Croston's book. How did that collaboration come about?
She asked me, and I was honoured. That's it. There's your answer.
Amazing. She just contacted you out of the blue?
Well,
or
she
did
knew
you...
who I was.
Yeah.
And then she asked me if I'd be open to being part of 20 women. And it was just so amazing. Such an opportunity. Imposter syndrome. Anyway, And so then I was here a year and a half ago, I did a little bit of ice climbing.
Amazing.
And she said in one of the events, she said, and Lydia invited herself to stay. Well, I needed a place to stay for a night. And she needed to interview me. So I just said, that's a good arrangement.
What a good way to get to know someone, too, over, maybe they'll sleep over coffee in the morning, right? Like, it's great.
Pat their cat and that kind of stuff.
I kind of want to pick your brain on what it was like to revisit your story afterwards. Is there anything that kind of surprised you looking at it through fresh eyes or a fresh lens?
With Joanna.
Yeah.
Well, I'm revisiting that story all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So to describe for people listening, my first ascent of Everest was was really quite controversial. And the guys I was with, the Kiwi guys who attempted Everest and didn't summit, went back went back to Kathmandu early, and after I summited, then made an official statement to the Ministry of Tourism that I was lying that I'd summited.
Why would they do something like that?
You know what? Probably the best way to describe it is just #MeToo. You know,
Fair.
It's like I kind of said, like I said.
How could a woman beat us?
See me joking, but I didn't sleep with the right people. I was a wild child. I had blonde dreadlocks. They also knew that if I had succeeded, in their eyes, if I succeeded in summiting Everest without oxygen, and they wanted to establish a seven summit thing, then if I'd already climbed Everest without oxygen, then them going and climbing it with oxygen
doesn't matter. Yeah,
doesn't really get a lot of sponsorship. That's pretty much it.
Wild.
Well, it happens in sports.
For sure.
It happens in sports all the time.
You don't really think of that side of things, right? And one thing, we're going to end on it a little bit later, is the concept of honesty, which I don't want to get into it just yet. What I do want to talk about is a concept that we brought up, or you brought up during the discussion with Joe once again, is that women in sharing their stories, especially when it comes to big achievements, tend to be a little less boastful or less self-promoting. Why do you think that is?
Because we're less self-promoting. I mean, we can unpack it. It's confidence. It's just that whole social thing of who puts themselves forward. And I think what we're saying is that what happens in society is then often replicated in elite sports, for example, or elite writing or whatever.
Like patriarchy holding women down type.
We could have movies, film stars, movie stars. What are they called modernly day? Movie stars.
Yeah.
Movie stars. And the men are getting paid 10 times as what the women are getting paid. Mm-hmm. It's just the same.
Yeah, fair. So maybe a trickle down of, unfortunately, the way it is. You spent decades pushing the limits, not just physically, but culturally. What have the mountains taught you about endurance beyond climbing, maybe in your own personal life?
My biggest lesson physically in the mountains was in 1987 when I was in India, and I had this big epic with this really, really strong climber. We were climbing a tramping mountain, but it was 7,000 meters, and we were traversing 3 peaks, and we had to descend the face of a 7,000 meter peak in a mega storm that we had never seen before. We hadn't any map of. And without a rope. And we had 6 avalanches in one day. We dug an emergency snow cave, kindly a cave, which then collapsed on me in an avalanche.
Oh, my God.
And John found me, which was crazy, and so on and so forth. So we have this big epic, and that was day 6 of a 7-day big trip. And it was a kind of epic that pretty much most of the time something pretty serious happens. Someone will lose their hands with frostbite, or someone will die. But we got away with just cold damage and no deaths, and that was so lucky. And so there was a whole lot of luck, but at the same time there's a whole lot of tenacity. You and I have gone rolling down in this avalanche. It's a whiteout. I can't see anything. I call your name. You're way in the distance. We're swimming. It's bottomless snow, la-di-da. And then we get back together again and we keep going. And it's just terrifying. You have to kind of go, I'm so scared, but I haven't got time to be scared. Just keep it together. And so because you've done that and done that and done that, and yes, you get PTSD and you don't talk for 3 days, which is quite a big deal for me. And all of those things, you are also find this incredible depth of resilience.
For
So you
sure.
that's your physical learning. And then, of course, post-Everest, I was publicly pillarized because these guys gave me a hard time. And it took a few years. And so then you get your kind of emotional crash down, but build up. So there's all these peaks and troughs and like this. And, well, you survive.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's, man. What is the main motivating factor when you're in these moments where it's life or death and you have to keep going? Like, what do you tell yourself?
That is the main motivating factor.
Yeah.
The main
I don't wanna
motivating
die.
factor is it is life or death.
Yeah.
That's the main motivating factor. And then you must pretty much open your mind, if you're lucky enough, to every bit of resource that you've got in your body, like knowing how to walk on your crampons if you are on steep terrain, or knowing how lots of people are flying off mountains now, so they must get lots of times when sometimes their chute nearly folds, or there's a lot of turbulence or something like this. So there's just you have to pull on all these micro or macro resources, and the fact that you've done long days before. So my longest day before I even left New Zealand for my longest day before I even started climbing in the Himalayas, was 28 hours.
Wild.
Yeah.
So
and most of it on front point.
Yeah.
We were slow. Yeah. But yeah. So you can keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wild. It's pushing that envelope a little bit further and further every time.
And getting comfortable with it. And in the olden days, it's quite funny that we used to, in New Zealand, we only used to carry a litre of water, because we'd be doing big hills, 18-hour ascents and lots of hot glaciers and steep. It's quite high. They're kind of like mini Himalayas.
Yeah.
Yeah, on a
And
litre of
why
water.
only 1 liter of water?
Well, because no one ever carried more than 1 litre. You carried a litre. In fact, we didn't even have litres, probably had a pint.
Yeah, like a 750
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wild. Let's go back to honesty in climbing, sports, and in life itself. How important is that to you? Like we said, honesty in climbing, or mountaineering or adventure sports. I always look at it as why would they lie about it? But when you have sponsorships and money, is that something what does that mean to you as far as
Well, I think those sorts of things, honesty, integrity, all those things we aspire to, are things that we, obviously we can have a lot of that instilled by parents, but say you didn't have any parents, or you had you grew up with a gang, or you've got different backgrounds, and so you always thought honesty was pretty easy, and then you're really pushed to be honest, or your honesty was challenged. Yeah. So as we get if we keep ourselves in a little bubble, the concept of honesty, or the concept of integrity, or the concept of fun, or the concept of joy, or any of these concepts that we like to talk about semi-academically, but intellectual concepts, will stay really small. But you put it out there and you say, well, I am telling the truth. No, you're not. Whoops, sorry.
That's okay.
No, you're not telling the truth. But I am telling the truth. No, you're not telling the truth. So you get challenged and, but that's pretty hard. Or I'm going to stay in integrity. It's really hard to stay and be and stay with my integrity, and it's really, really hard. I give up. Well, so as young people, as we grow, if we integrate and if we engage, these are all tested and these are all expanded or contracted, And you hear lots of stories where people say, well, I just had to be honest.
I'm honesty is the best policy kind of guy myself, especially since I've made pretty significant changes in my life. I feel like being honest is just the easier route, to come up with a lie or a fib or something, and then perpetuating that or portraying that as you move forward through your life. It's got to be a mask that's got to be pretty tough to wear at times. But you almost suffered the opposite of that.
Yeah, well, I know, but it's all still a personal test, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, Dan, did you used to drink a lot?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you've come through this?
Yes, alcoholic drug addict for a lot of years.
So I did a film a couple of years ago with a young woman who was Maori from the North Island. The north of the North Island of New Zealand, Aotearoa, New Zealand, is quite poor. And she was Maori, and I met her on a film job, and she had spent 19 of her 33 years in hard drugs and alcohol, methamphetamine, and alcoholic.
Yeah.
And she had really beautiful skin, and she was clean for 2 years at that point. But she says, I'm never recovered. I'm always, you're...
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. And we had a big group of people, and we'd been working on this film, and everyone had been asking me about Everest. And I said, look, everyone here could get up Everest as long as we have money and you didn't get sick. You're pretty healthy. And then when she said that about her past, I said, well, you are the person who has come from addiction or major abuse, and she'd been sexually abused as well as a baby. Yeah, I know. And all of these things, if you've come out of that and you are growing your life, you have way more integrity, way more honesty, and way more grit than any of us privileged people that grow up and their mums and dads take them skiing and la-di-da. Do you see what I...
Yeah.
Like, that is the grit.
I think it's looking internally at yourself takes a different lens almost in a sense, and admitting to yourself that maybe you've made mistakes and you can push through and become whatever you want to become. Like for me, this is it, chatting to people and living in a beautiful place and hopefully inspiring others to do the same.
You have to do more than that. You have to admit to yourself, but then you actually have to deal with wanting to go back to the physical enjoyment of imbibation, if you like.
Absolutely. And in my own journey, I've found that for sure. And like life is pretty amazing when you look at kind of how easy or how simple it can be. The simplest things in life tend to be the most rewarding, I find.
And I think I really like to just unpack that one little bit more. This whole thing with, say, addiction or having to deal with sexual abuse and whatever other version of pain, and addiction is its own self, is that there is another path, and the people I've always thought, even when I was younger, I've always found the people who've made lots of mistakes in their life, strangely, they seem to be the most interesting people.
For sure.
I mean,
sure.
The ones that have come out the other side.
Yeah.
But they're often really smart because they've come out the other side, and they've achieved so much more, and they've experienced so much more, and if you've been down there, if you've been down here and you've climbed that much, you've climbed twice as far as someone who starts here.
Very true.
So this is the message we need to get out to people, whether they're young or old, actually, is you have more as soon as you've made one step out of that dark world.
100%.
You have more than almost everyone else in the community around you.
Absolutely.
More resource, more grit, more amazingness.
I think for me personally, especially when it comes to addiction, it came down to loving myself, really. It's kind of a way to self-inflict pain on yourself, like if you don't see yourself as worthy of getting out of bed and taking care of yourself, right? It's a strange road to get lost on,
But you getting out of bed and taking care of yourself for, let's say start a week, then that's where you get your self-worth.
100%.
It's that whole thing that creativity is the result of action.
Big time.
Which is what Wade Davis says, I think. Yeah, or lots of people. But and the other thing I really like, everything is hard until it's easy.
For sure. You got to do the reps. That's all.
Yeah, but so you can't love yourself until you've done something to love yourself. And that's the hard part. And that's why you're so far ahead.
Yeah.
If you grow up with everyone telling you how wonderful you are and we love you and here's your Christmas present with you and all that kind of stuff, then it's not too hard to love yourself.
Adversity tends to breed a fire in people.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Well, before we get out of here, I had one final question that I wanted to ask you, kind of off topic there. What do you hope your journey inspires the next generation of mountaineering women coming up through guiding and mountaineering today?
Engagement, curiosity, the love of nature, the respect for nature, female or male, participants. The joy of the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So easy to get sucked into the phone these days, and people tend to, I don't know, like I know we're involved in media and social media and stuff, but the search for clout, they call it, right? Kind of notoriety online in a space that seems to mean so much to people, but it's not tangible. It doesn't exist, you know? Very important to keep in mind, you know, as we go further down this road that, again, the simplest things in life, walking outside or tramping or connecting with nature.
Yeah, but, you know, for a lot of people, they're a long way away from nature.
It's true.
So, it's not easy for some people, and sort of, I guess you really have to step out of your comfort zone. You actually have to make things happen.
True.
You know, I didn't grow up with lots of money. You have to make it happen, and it's a lot of work. And we know scientifically that if you do hard things, your brain becomes stronger.
For sure.
You make more connections. So you just make your brain better by overcoming something.
Go out there and challenge yourself, I think, is the moral of the story here. Lydia, thank you so much for coming by. I know this was last minute. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. This has been a great little conversation.
It's an absolute pleasure talking with you, Daniel.
Yeah, these things, I'm a firm believer that nothing is a coincidence. And I was sitting by myself yesterday. Wildly enough, right next to me sits one of the pioneering women in mountaineering. So thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Please give us a like and subscribe if you haven't already. This concludes our long-form interviews here at the Banff Center Mountain Film and Book Festival. We have plenty of short-form stuff out on our Instagram, so give us a like and subscribe there. Go check it out. And that's all we have for you today. So like every week, we'll see you next Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in.